What's up, everybody? This is Bob's Three-Toed Warriors with a Word on the Street Season 1, Episode 8, titled The Right to Party. Let's find out how much this guy likes to party. But today we have Detroit Beastie with me to talk
That's me.
fantasy football. What's going on, Robin?
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Thanks
You've
for coming on.
been, if I might say so, you've been, I'm talking like I won an Academy Award, but you've been one of my biggest supporters and supporting other pages and content since day one. If I was down and out and needed a retweet or a share or a like, you were my guy. So I'm very happy to be here, and I feel like you're 8 episodes in, but still long overdue.
Well, thanks, man. No, it's, you know what, the fantasy football community is a neat place, and you either get to be the people that help each other out, or you get to be people that just fight with people for no reason. I do like to debate a little, but some people can get a little overwhelming there. So no, all good. So all right. So you can catch my podcast on just about every platform out there. Don't forget to subscribe, give it a little 5-star rating. Really helps out. Please and thank you. Before we get into you, sir, I got a little intro music for you here. Hold on.
I'm excited.
You gotta fight for your right to party.
There you go.
Thank you.
First guest with his own intro music.
Fantastic.
Your name made it easy. Kind of cheesy. I played it on my phone, but it's all good. So tell the listeners where they can find you and your work, because you are a busy man.
Thank you. On Twitter, you can find me at Detroit Beastie. I also write, head writer, content guy at DFS Cheat Sheet 1. The website is just DFS Cheat Sheet minus the 1.com. Shout out to Jeremy. He's at DFS Dudes. He's the owner, creator of that website. Happy he brought me in. Doing a lot of good things over there. I hate to sound not corny, but I really do appreciate all the love and support. You're with me in a group chat on Twitter, and it's just nothing but good stuff. Ideas. We're bouncing ideas. We're talking. We're chatting. We're sharing each other's stuff. You said in the opening, it's a neat place, and I'd like to add to that and say it's pretty swell, if you ask me. So find me on Twitter at Detroit Beastie. On Facebook, I'm at Chris Robin, plain and simple. I am pets with Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, and all them. Save the jokes. I've heard them all. And let's get it started. Find me, follow me. A lot of content, like you said. You said it, not me. Busy man.
We're going to go into it further here. So
awesome.
All right. So I'll cheers that. I'll use my unofficial Michelob Ultra sponsor here, also known as piss water in a can. But it's today's beverage from doing yard work. So
absolutely. There was real quick. It reminded me of something. I went to Nashville a few summers in a row years ago, and I bought Miller 24 when that was the thing. I think it was called. And I drank like 30 of those things and nothing. Might as well been drinking water. I was with some people. I stayed by the pool. They came back to the pool littered with 20 to 30 beer cans. Nothing. So yeah. I'll just stick to water from now on.
Yeah, I overpaid for this water here. So I did say you're a busy man, and you got some things going on in your world, little grad school. You're studying some behavioral therapy. Now, you're not going to analyze me today, are you?
Absolutely not.
So what are we doing with that? What's the plan?
Well, I work with mentally impaired adults, help improve their quality of life, and it's great. I mean, when you say behavioral therapy, it's not like you think of the guy in a leather chair talking to someone on a couch. Well,
sure.
How do you feel? Because I'm working with impaired adults, but there's still a quality of life to be had. A lot of them have a more active social life than I do, and it's led to a lot of good things. One of them being I've been coaching Special Olympics for a few years now, Special Olympics basketball, Special Olympics softball. I really didn't know I could feel this fulfilled, when doing that. So when I have a hobby like that, chatting with you, writing articles, researching, on my off time, like today, Sunday, it was sunny, fantastic. I sat outside all day, read, did some research. It's like, again, not to sound corny, but I'm just a positive kind of guy where, you know, I didn't know this level of fulfillment was someone you could have that. I thought it was only like in the movies, or it was fake, like in a fiction book, you know what I mean? So awesome. I love what I do. I'm not done with school yet. Actually just started a semester or two ago, so we'll get there. And in the meantime, I still work with the impaired adult community, case managing, coaching Special Olympics. So I love where everything's headed here.
All right. So to the fantasy, I don't want to narrow you down here, because I think I probably put you in a box if I do, but to the fantasy world, I was going to say fantasy football, but how many leagues are you in, and does it cross platforms, or is it mostly just fantasy football?
No, I do fantasy. I'm only in 5 leagues, fantasy football wise.
Smart man.
And you can imagine since joining Twitter and talking with so many people and building relationships, just about everyone under the sun has asked me to join the league,
all
right?
Day long. Oh yeah.
And I've had to, I've turned every one of them down, because there was a day and time where I was in 20, 25 leagues, and it took the fun right out of it. It's all the stress, the confusion, the group chats. Did I send a offer to this guy and this, like, where was it? So I had to cut back. In this season, actually, is the first season where I'm going to be keeping it. I'm actually going to trim one more, so I'll be at 4. So it's almost like I can relax, and I can really dig in and get into all 4 leagues and have some fun. I also love dynasty fantasy baseball. I'm in 2 leagues, and we're talking like minor league roster spots, 50, 60 roster spots, minor leaguers, 16-year-old kids. It gets crazy. So I don't do any seasonal basketball. I only do 1 seasonal NHL, but when it comes to DFS across the board, I do every sport under the sun there.
Very cool. Very cool. And we're going to go a lot into DFS here in a minute. Yeah, I've had the joy of being in multiple leagues with the same guys. Last year I did 14, so not a crazy number, but there's one guy I was in 7 leagues with, and I'm like, hey, trade offer in your queue. And his answer was always, which league? That's usually a good indication you're probably in a couple too many, but
and then you're stressing, you're scrambling when it should be fun, and it's just it's okay. And I tell all those people, people have asked me that question, like a text message or like a DM on Twitter or something, and they'll be like, well, I'm in 37 leagues and I love it. And I'll say, well, there'll be a time when it'll be exhausting, and you'll come back and go, man, I wish I would have taken your advice sooner, man.
Yeah. To each their own. I do love the fact that all my leagues I do play in, and pretty much all the ones I played in last year, they're all different styles, formats, stuff like that. That was the reason, the fun behind it. But so I said you're a madman. I said that you have a lot of things going on, and so you've been putting out articles like a madman.
Correct.
Love them. Good articles.
Thank you.
We're gonna chit chat about a few of them, and if we go a little, if we give the secret sauce of the article away, it's probably not gonna be too bad, because I got a hunch you'll have a new one coming right behind it, and you got it. We'll be all right. So first one would be what's the difference between, and I think you were talking dynasty fantasy value and or being a dynasty fantasy asset. So
correct, yeah.
That difference for people, what does that mean?
Well, to me, great question, because I published that article probably about a week or 10 days ago. I named a dynasty asset from each team, so all 32 NFL teams, right? And not so much on Twitter, but on Facebook, and then on the general website, like pops up on a Google search and people leave comments at the end. I caught some heat because people. It struck me like people were confused about what I was trying to do, right? Because I mentioned, let's say Christian McCaffrey, or even Miles Sanders, Philadelphia's running back, where I said they are their team's biggest fantasy asset, correct? I mean, CMC is the number 1 overall guy. Can't head and shoulders above most
the fantasy
of the league,
player's
right?
asset we're talking about.
Yeah.
The fantasy owner. Okay. Yep.
Correct. So I said someone like Christian McCaffrey, he's the biggest team's asset, yet he holds no value. And that's where people were, I don't want to say confused because that would be insulting to the people who read my stuff, and I don't want to do that. Not
Are
a
we talking
jerk.
because there's no margin?
Yeah, they weren't understanding what I was getting to, because maybe it was my fault because I didn't explain it as best as I could in the opening in the article. So when I say the guy's an asset, it is what it is. He's the asset. But when I say someone like CMC has no value, people look at me confused, like, what? What do you mean? And the only reason I said that, like CMC or Lamar Jackson or Pat Mahomes, they're their biggest assets, but they have no value, is because if you were a Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, CMC owner, is there anything is there an offer, anything under the sun on this earth that you would accept for those players? I would have to say, I would err on the side of no. How many offers and polls have you seen on Twitter and Facebook about, I am the CMC owner, I was offered 1, 2, 3 in 2020, plus this guy, and it always is leaned towards CMC. So owners of these stud players aren't willing to sell them for anything, meaning there's no value to be had. So if you look on the other side of it, if I own CMC, Bob, and you wanted to grab him from me, you'd have to give me your entire roster. You'd have to give me your entire 2020 draft class, and you don't want to do that. And I'm not going to accept that. So there's no value to be had with these guys. And there's only like a handful of guys that command that kind of respect. You know what I mean? So when I say
they're dead.
So when I say dynasty asset and has no value, that I should have said dynasty asset with no trade value. But when my mind starts churning and all my notebook, my notebooks start flying, it's like I get ahead of myself, or maybe I'm too far ahead, of the curve with some of the stuff. So I do my best to explain myself, and I've done a pretty good job, I think. It's just that one article that caused some confusion and or heat, and you will be happy to know, and all the people watching and people who support my stuff, I'm currently finishing up a dynasty asset value for all 32 teams, where I explain everything we just talked about in length, in written form in the beginning of the article. And then each team, I give a guy that's more than likely different than the past article I wrote as far as a dynasty asset. I left values out of it. It's just strictly dynasty assets. So it's pretty easy. You could guess, you could really scroll down the list of teams, and you could name the number one stud guy on each team. You know what I mean? So I took everyone's advice. I thought about it for a day or two, and I put pen to paper, and you guys will see that tomorrow or early Tuesday.
That's always good to grow, right?
Absolutely.
Hey, and those people who are giving you feedback means they were actually reading the article, I think, right?
That's it.
You've created some conversation. They'll be back for more. So good for you.
That was the biggest takeaway, the positive thing that I took away from it. Anybody who's taking the time to, number one, read it, number two, and then have it invokes an emotion or a feeling, and then three, they actually leave a comment, that means that what I'm doing as a writer is working. If I were to publish articles and no one was reading or commenting, I probably would have given up a long time ago. What's the point? Right. It'd be like talking to myself. So thankful for everyone who comments, and I don't care if you tell me, Chris, this article sucks, you should give up. I'm gonna say, you know what? I've had that happen before, and the comment is the blushing face emoji with the praying hands, and thank you for reading, my friend.
There you go. So another article was, who is the most, I typed a word twice. Who is the most, oh, no, I didn't. Who is the most must-have dynasty asset on the Jags?
Yeah. Who is the most dynasty? That's the way you wrote it off.
No, who is the most have? Yeah. It just, when I said it, I was like, okay. So who's that big asset on the Jags you just must have?
Yeah, see, I feel like you did your good research, because if I'm not mistaken, this was a poll or a question that I brought to Twitter maybe this time last weekend, because I was in the middle of my current article, which I just plugged, and I didn't know, is it Is it Gardner Minshew? Is it Leonard Fournette? There's a lot of questions,
Mm-hmm.
with these guys. They have a bevy of receivers, good receivers. And I think, given Leonard Fournette, I love the guy. He's a stud. He's a bruiser. He's had some some soft tissue injuries. Will he be
Personal
traded?
issues.
Yeah. Is he going to be traded away? Is he going to punch someone in the stands? It's really weird. So my rationale is, if I say someone is a dynasty asset, that is a guy I want to hitch my wagon to, right? So do I really want to hitch my wagon to Leonard Fournette? I don't know. So I think the safe bet here is to go DJ Shark there.
I was just writing on my paper.
Good. Great.
Shark.
Yep. And there's a lot of, I don't want to sound rude or like a jerk, but I'm not a fan of when I get it. People say, oh, he's got amazing upside. It makes sense, but I'd rather say he's got a ton of talent, which is the same thing. Oh my, you can read a thesaurus and find a different name, but DJ Shark has a ton of upside. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think he can really legitimately make a jump this year, climb into the top 20, top 15, and I'd love to see that happen. There's certain teams, I've mentioned this a few times in my writing, just a personal feeling of mine as a lifelong Detroiter and Detroit Lions fan. The NFL is always more fun when certain teams are good, like the Bengals, the Redskins. When those teams are good, making the playoffs, I just find football more enjoyable. You know what I mean? And maybe that's just because it's been the same old for how long, you know what I mean? So that's just where I'm from. So Kansas City winning everything last year was fantastic. They've been down and out for a while, and they're finally, future's looking bright in KC. I'll tell you that. Oof.
Yeah, that's a ridiculously strong team.
Yeah.
So last article we'll touch on was your thoughts on running back handcuffs.
I love the idea of a running back handcuff within reason, though, right? Just plugging my phone and
You're
enjoying the conversation. I don't want us to die here.
There you go.
So when it comes to running back handcuffs, it's a good thing to do. I don't think every starting running back that you roster needs to be handcuffed. Only a select few, like a Leonard Fournette. You don't know if he's going to be a late minute scratch or such. But, guys like McCaffrey, Barkley,
workhorses,
even Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, you're just taking up a roster spot at a certain point, right? But on the flip side, in Dallas, Tony Pollard is his handcuff, right? And I own him. I drafted him in a big time dynasty league, and didn't start him one time last season. But I heard that Kellen Moore, the old Lions quarterback, second or third stringer, drafted him. He's now their offensive coordinator, and it's written down that they're going to work Tony Pollard into their scheme, or in New Orleans, Kamara, stud. Why handcuff him? Well, you got Latavius Murray backing him up. Who can carry the load? He did it for a couple games last season.
Sure.
So if you find yourself in a situation where the handcuff has shown flashes to carry the load and be an RB1, if your guy goes down, handcuff him. You know what I mean? But, if you got the running back in, I can't think of one, like in Tennessee, Derrick Henry's your running back. Who the heck are you going to handcuff him with, first of all? Second of all, why are you going to handcuff him anyways? Evans, they drafted that kid, Darton Evans, if I'm not mistaken. He looks good. I drafted him, but not for handcuffing purposes, just as a flyer. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So that's your rule all the time, or are you making some different changes there with the scares of this season?
You mean my stance on handcuffs? Does that go season to season, or is
does it alter with the things going on this season with the changes in the off season and the health, and are people going to be out because they're going to get the flu, or they're going to be more prone to injury, stuff like that? So any changes to your handcuffing strategy there?
No, my stance on really not handcuffing guys that's been my MO for quite some time. And if I catch if I catch heat for this, and if the group of guys that we hang with on Twitter that read and write, and our stuff, hopefully they do get involved in the conversation. And it's just it's a personal preference. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a horrible move. I'm not saying you should adopt my fantasy football ideals. It's just something that I don't like to do. And on a side note, my whole MO with writing DFS stuff or dynasty stuff is to shine a light on my personal process, because when I was starting off in DFS or playing, deep league dynasty football, I really liked it when there was a guy like you talking or writing, or I was reading your stuff that showed me his personal process, not someone else's ideal, not some nonsense comment or quote that you found in a magazine or an article. I want to hear how you do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then I'm going to take how you do it, how the next guy does it, and I'm going to form my own, my own power, my own team of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yep. Makes sense to me. So you mentioned DFS 1, 2, 10 times in there because you love some DFS.
I absolutely do.
I'm sure most people have heard of it, but for those who haven't heard of it, don't understand it. So what is DFS for those who don't play?
Well, DFS, it stands for daily fantasy sports. If you play any sort of fantasy, seasonal long fantasy, you'd have to be living under a rock if you haven't heard of FanDuel, DraftKings. There's other sites that are trying to emulate what they're doing, but it's genius. It's a really genius thing, and it was created in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. And when FanDuel was the first to do it, if I remember correctly, and their whole thing was, well, is your seasonal fantasy team crap?
Yeah.
Are you done and out of the playoff run by week 5, or is your team loaded with injuries? Well, come put a couple bucks on FanDuel and you can create your own team, and it's just for that day.
Sure.
Real money, real prizes. And at first people thought, is this a scam? Is this not? Is it a pyramid scheme? There was a ton of stuff. But when you get into it, it's a real thing. It's a legit thing. There's real money to be made. And I honestly don't – I can't think of one seasonal fantasy sports player that doesn't dabble in DFS nowadays, whether it's on DraftKings or DFS. And I think of it as – I'm in Michigan, so there's a few major college teams in Michigan. Main two are Michigan State. You're either one or the other, right? Same thing with DFS. You're either DraftKings or FanDuel. A lot of people do both, but you always have where your loyalties lie. Mine is FanDuel. I dabble in DraftKings, but I always go crazy, and I'm always all in on FanDuel.
Okay, very good. So is it for everyone or just the big guys doing millions of entries? Like I hear you listen to CBS Sports. I think it's Heath Cummings on there who does, I could be wrong, but I think he sets like 100, 200 lineups a week or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And like, I'm out there, I'm like, I got my $2, I got my one entry. I'm like, so like,
it's almost like in, let's get into some of the little inner workings of DFS real quick. So those guys, they're called sharks. They max entry the big contests, and I'm not going to plug them because a few of these guys have their own websites. They're making money. They're taking away views and content from guys like us, just hardworking, people who love to do this as a hobby, right? And I'm not mad at anybody for trying to make money or whatever, but so those are called sharks. They max entry contests. They're playing anywhere between 10,000 to 50,000 a day in contests. That's their full-time job, right? And in turn, they win that much a day. You max enter a contest, $10,000, and it's like a blind squirrel finds a nut, saying, right? So guys like us in a single entry contest, you can get in let's say the NFL every Sunday. It's called like the NFL Punt. That's the contest name. It's $1 to get in. It's single entry. There's 10,000 other people in there, but first place is like 25 grand, right? That one, that you might as well go play the lottery. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you think you're going to hit first place. But I play that one every weekend. It's like it's a single entry, so everyone's on the same playing field. I'm just looking for a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
Put $1 in. If I win $5, $10, cool. I'll carry it over to Monday and play baseball. You know, so smaller guys like us are better suited for cash games. They're
the
called,
50-50s.
and those are like head-to-heads, 50-50s, double ups, things of that nature. You know, primarily those are 10 or 20-man contests. Again, everyone's on the same playing field. Sharks will get in those if the entry fee is like $25, but it's pretty safe that $1 or $2 double up or something like that. It's just going to be us, you know, no names, just hardworking blue-collar guys on a Sunday drinking some beer, having fun. You know what I mean? So my thing is, when there are sports, especially football, basketball, and hockey, I try and do as many of those 3 to 5 man contests. They're $1 to get in. You're only playing against 2 or 4 other guys. If you win the contest, it's $2.70 or $5. But I play 100 or 150 of them. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I use the same lineup in all 150 contests. You know what I mean? So on a good night, I have it all written down somewhere. I log everything. On a good night, if my line hits and I take first, and let's say 120 of 150 of them, can cash out at anywhere between $1,200 to $1,400. If it does okay, I still make 75 to $60, give or take. You know what I mean? So that's how I play. It's been many, many years of trial and error, doing a million different trying a million different things. I feel like that way, which I just explained, works best for me. And that's where we're at. You know what I mean? And I will be honest, I hate to pull the curtain away, but I honestly do prefer writing.
Yeah.
Seasonal content, DFS stuff. So I'm big into NHL. NHL might be my favorite sport. And when it comes to DFS, not to sound like an egomaniac, but my DFS stuff is and has been lights out. It's proven, you know. And when the pandemic hit and they took it away from us, we had a lot of momentum here at Cheat Sheets about it, but nothing we can't pick back up because I've gained even more momentum. But hockey DFS is the most fun for me. But getting back to my point, I got off track a little bit. I wrote an article every day, wrote 2 articles a day. I did a video, and then I really didn't even play a lineup because on FanDuel and gambling in general, it gives people a rush, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I can find that same rush in reading and writing and talking to you or people in the comments. I find that same rush there. So I was noticing that I was scaling back my DFS play, my entries, which was cool.
So I think you kind of started to allude to this in your answer of the last question, but building a bankroll. What is a bankroll? But how can someone build a nice sized bankroll for then allowing for more flexibility with contest selection?
Yeah, great question. Absolutely. So
that's a great question, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like we talked about that before we got on the broadcast. So your bankroll is basically your account, how much money you got in your account, right? So you go on FanDuel, you type in your debit card, you put $20 in your account. So your bankroll is $20, right? And if you want to build a bankroll, people talk about this till they're blue in the face. There's people that have been playing DFS for years that still can't or don't know how to build a bankroll. You know, a lot of people think, well, I got $20, I'm going to put it in one contest, I'm going to win 10 grand, wake up in the morning, things are going to be great. Well, if you want to get serious about playing DFS, you want to build a nice bankroll so you can enter, let's say, 100-man or $100 single entry or a $500 single entry where the payout is $25K or $50K. So I found my best bet building a bankroll are those small contests, double ups, head-to-heads, even those smaller 3 or 5 man contests. You know what I mean? It's $1 to get in. If you win the contest, it's $2.70. Let's say this is for FanDuel, right? So you put $10 down. You put $10, get into 10 entries. You hit first in all of them. You just made 27 and odd dollars, right? So you've doubled your money, right? So you're building a bankroll. That's how I do it. That's how everybody does. Your best bet would be to, if I had to nail it down, I would say a double up, where you enter $1 and the let's say 100 people are in that contest. The first 50 double their entry. And so it's simple. You don't even got to get first place to win money. Yeah. The first 50 people double their entry fee.
Got to beat the medium.
Yep, that's it.
Yep. So I'm going to slide over and talk about Listener League entries for the Listener League I'm firing up. So we're going to give away 2 of the entries for 5-star reviews. Send those screenshots of the review on me at Twitter at Bob's3Toad. Here is the first winner for the person that sent me the funniest message. I'm putting a question mark after this statement as funniest message, but it was the entry that won. So here you go. At Fantasy Force FB, welcome to the Listener League, sir. Here is your joke. How can you make a tissue dance? Do you know this one?
Yeah, my cat would probably know the answer to that. Put a little boogie into it.
You put a little boogie in it.
Those are the jokes you find on a popsicle stick or a Laffy Taffy wrapper.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of competition for this week, so he's in. You're in, buddy.
I think I actually know fantasy football for us. They got a purple logo.
Yep. So
shout out to you guys.
We're gonna do another winner for someone who tweets me the most "what the fuck" picture on Twitter. So keep them safe for work. Topic. But I want a "what the fuck" picture because it'll be funny. So that's what I have for that part. You say you like comic books. What are we talking here? Collecting comic books.
Yeah, for my my late father, he passed away a few years ago. He was a huge sports card collector, right? I see the myriad of signed jerseys in the background. Yeah. He was the same thing with sports cards. That's cool. What I remember growing up, going to sports card shows with bringing my friends, running around, flea markets and trade centers, let's say. Yeah. I didn't catch any fleas. It's just the market, But he was a huge sports card fan. And he saved absolutely everything. So he had stacks of comic books from when he was a little kid. He was born in 59, right? After he passed away, I found a lot of boxes with comic books, and I have the original Iron Man comics, the first copy. I have the 1 through 10 there, and then a ton of old, I don't want to say golden age because those get crazy expensive and those are rare, but I love like a good silver age or, a bronze age, 80-page giant, huge into like the old, like 50s and 60s Joker, the way they drew him. I'm a big fan of, just the same stuff everybody likes, Superman, Batman. Sure. My favorite comic book guy is Metamorpho, if anyone has heard of him.
Nah.
He's great. So I used my late father's comic book collection as a starting point, a damn good starting point, if you ask me, to start making my own, and I'm in my office in the basement where I do a lot of my reading and writing. So in front of me here, I saw this online one day. It's like a cork board, with push pins, and someone turned it into a comic book wall. So cool. Whoops. So cat swatted the phone. Sorry. So in front of me right here where I'm looking are all my, my favorite and most expensive comic books on a corkboard. So when I sit down, I'm looking at the computer and you guys here, but up here I have all my comics, some that they were my father's when he was a kid, some we collected together, and then the rest were stuff that I've purchased over the years.
Sorry about your dad passing, but it's pretty cool that you guys did stuff together because not all dads do that. So
absolutely. Cool. Yeah, I'm an only child, and we had a great relationship. So
awesome. It's awesome.
He died young. suddenly. It stinks, but I feel great, and I have peace in my heart that nothing was ever left unsaid. So I'm good. Just it's what happens in life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little IDP here for just a hot minute.
Yes.
We'll talk. Always getting a little excited. I said a hot minute. I might be lying. It might be a hot 2 hours. Y'all buckle up. We're in for a long show.
Let's do it.
So we're going to cover two aspects here. We're going to talk about your preferred IDP settings, position, depth of roster, etc., and then we're going to go into a couple hot takes you got for us. So why don't you start with how, if you're starting a league tomorrow, today, tonight, right now, how are you setting up that league?
I'm setting it up where I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, especially if any sort of IDP is fantastic. I'm a champion of IDP. You know what I mean? It's in my my bio. IDP encyclopedia. And that wasn't. I didn't give myself that.
Humble brag.
A lot of listeners and readers go, man, you're like an IDP encyclopedia. You should put that. So I did, and so I got to carry that flag, and I will very proudly. So to answer your question, I think the best way to do IDP is a full-blown defensive roster. You're going to do your offense, and you're going to carry a full-blown defense. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You're going to do 2 defensive ends, a defensive tackle or 2, 3 or 4 linebackers, right? A couple cornerbacks, and then you're going to do a couple safeties, because people get into it where they mix. They just DB is one defensive back is one category. So it could be, a safety or a cornerback. I like separating the two. Sure. So you're going to roster 2 safeties and a few cornerbacks, and you're going to run with it that way. Right. Okay. And that is a whole nother level of fun and excitement that I can't explain to any of you unless you actually play it, because I've seen a lot of questions, a lot of screenshots where, they have an offensive team. Well, my league has an offensive team, and we can draft 1 IDP player. Yeah. I mean, what's the point? You know what I mean? If you're going to do IDP, just do it full blown. Like I said, roster a full defense, people. And if you're scared or nervous about it, have any questions, I'm at Detroit Beastie. DMs are open. I will talk and answer any question. I love the stuff. I'm hoping that it becomes more mainstream, like the Superflex leagues are. I mean, that has just gone to the moon now. Superflex is basically a 2-quarterback league, right? I mean,
for the most part,
you're going to want 2 quarterbacks in most spots, but let's start getting some IDP hashtags out there, and let's start getting some more IDP leagues going out there. And I'm going to bang that drum, and I'm going to carry that flag until I fall flat on my face.
I like it. I like that enthusiasm and that all-inness.
Thank you.
So let's get some. I was gonna say hot takes, and I crack a cold beer. That actually didn't work very well. Let's get a couple hot takes on that IDP.
Sure. I think this one really isn't a hot take, but because he's the number 1 projected overall IDP guy. It's Colts linebacker Darius Leonard. He's an absolute monster. I think he finishes the year as the number 1 ranked and overall IDP player. And it's not even going to be close, right?
So he holds that title out.
Yeah, outright. And he's going to be next season. When they do tier, a lot of websites or writers do tiers. It's going to be tier 1, Darius Leonard, space tier 2. And that's it, right? And you might say, well, hey, Chris, you're a dummy. That's really not a hot take. And I know. I just told you it's not that hot of a take. I just took it a step further and said no one's going to touch him. He's going to be by far and away the best overall IDP asset. That's the word of the day for not only this season, but a few seasons to come.
That's what I say. If you have to pay for him, he better be worth it.
Yeah, he missed a couple games. I own him, if you didn't notice, in my favorite IDP where we roster a full defense, and he missed a couple games last season after getting a concussion. He had some concussion-like symptoms, and it's like those 2 or 3 games that he didn't play. All the other people, all the other defensive guys or people like us who count stats were like, it gives us a chance for my guys to catch up to his production. You know what I mean? So he's ridiculous. It's not even close. And I'm not even a Colts fan. You know what I mean? I'm a Darius Leonard fan. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sure.
So moving on, I think in 2020, it's going to be the year of the safety, where that second tier of guys, like let's make a fictional, let's fast forward and we're talking a year from now, right? Darius Leonard, space, tier 2. Tier 2 is going to be just loaded with safeties, Jamal Adams, Landon Collins, Derwin James, Minka Fitzpatrick, and even Jabril Peppers in the Giants. You know what I mean? Because he, if I remember correctly, Jabril Peppers is a Michigan man, go blue. I've seen on some sites like Sleeper, he's got a multi-positional eligibility where you can roster him as a safety or a cornerback, and that's fantastic. So 2020 is going to be the year of the safety. These guys are just so talented. Everybody that I just named off, especially Jamal, Minka, Derwin James, they're absolute stud ball hawks. Those are the guys you want because they're getting tackles, their takeaways, interceptions, they all add up. You know what I mean? That's why if you're into IDP as much as I am, that linebackers are the most important piece of your IDP league. You know what I mean?
Yep.
To put it in context, a linebacker is like what a running back is to your fantasy teams, and in the right scoring format, they can sometimes score just as many points as a starting running back. And that the league that I'm in, we drafted last year, right? And right before the draft, the commish said, I'm going to screw around with the scoring format where a defense is going to be just as important as your offense, And so something clicked in my head, and I thought, again, people, this is me personally, my process. I thought it more fun to build a championship defense than to build an offense. It didn't hurt that I had the second overall pick, chose CMC, but then so I had McCaffrey, Devontae Adams, and then a crazy defense. And after we're done, I'll send out a screenshot of my starting IDP roster. Took me all the way to the championship, so it's fantastic.
It's awesome. All right.
I have a few more hot takes if you want them.
Yeah, I think we got time for probably 1 or 2 more. Let's do it.
Okay, I'll move quick then. My two favorite rookie IDPs coming into this year are Patrick Queen, Grant Delpit. We'll leave it at that. They're both in phenomenal situations. What more can I say? And then I like the idea of these next 2 guys, they're cornerbacks, making it into the top 10 with ease as far as IDP scoring's going. Tre'Davious White, Buffalo's starting cornerback. He's just absolutely insane. I saw a graphic on him where gave up zero touchdowns on I think it was in the 400, range of passes or plays on his side of the field. He gave up 0 touchdowns, goose egg, 0.0, And Marlon Humphrey in Baltimore, their cornerback. Real quick, what Baltimore is doing, their defense is so good, much like Pittsburgh's, but for the sake of the conversation, Baltimore, they have such a good defense where guys like Marlon Humphrey don't have to carry the load. You know what I mean? So that just makes them more valuable, you know?
Right.
So that's just some things that were running through my mind.
So I've heard a long time ago, by that I mean last year, and I never really looked to see if it was true. Yeah, it was a long time ago. I think it was Buffalo. Somebody said that they're whoever the stat guys at the games that record the tackles, half tackles, stuff like that. tend to be a little loose and lenient on the tackle,
okay.
half tackles. Is
What,
that
a home field advantage stat packing?
Yeah, is that a you ever heard that or
I have not heard of that, no.
you have to,
And
you have to check it
as a
out?
Tre'Davious White
Cheat code.
owner, what do I care?
No, you like it.
I'll
want
use
it.
every half tackle, quarter tackle I can get my hands on.
Oh, yeah.
Assisted tackle, yeah.
Get that sack for a loss with a fumble.
Yep.
Stack up those points.
Here's one here. I got one more that's a real hot take. I've seen a lot of people talking about Leighton Vander Esch,
Sure.
Dallas's starting middle linebacker. He's an absolute stud, but he had neck surgery, and unfortunately, I don't know the guy, never met him, never talked to him. So this isn't coming from a place of hate or negativity. I just don't think he's going to be the same, and
Right.
Coming into this time last year, you could actually write his name in pen in the top 10 overall IDP rankings. Unfortunately, I just don't see him making it back there. At least not anytime soon. It's like, if any of you guys are Dallas fans, you know who Sean Lee is,
Right.
Same thing with him. He's a stud when he's on the field, but
field way too
nowadays he's rarely on the field because he's just so beaten up. So I hope I'm completely wrong on this one. I hope that I eat shit for this one because I truly do want every professional player, all across the board to be healthy and to produce and following their dreams and play the game they love. So I really do hope I'm wrong. Just a personal opinion of mine.
No, I like it. All right. Let's do my Ask All preseason question. So this is we're flipping back to the offense side and we're flipping over to the redraft side of the world.
Perfect.
So I'm going to take one quarterback, one running back, and one wide receiver from you that you could see finishing in the top 5 for the season at their position. Mm-hmm. So he'll finish as running back 4, whatever. But you're able to draft him as running back 13, 14, 15. Not the 13, 14, 15th round, but as running back 13, 14, 15. So we'll start with quarterback. And let's see what you got.
I got 3 guys here I want to mention. I won't spend long on either. I'll just like a quick hit. Boom, boom, boom.
Okay.
I'm really into Sam Darnold for the New York Jets. I think he's the guy there. I hate that saying, he's the guy. I mean, that's just like a lazy kind of thing. But I love Sam Darnold. He's in redraft, in a 1 quarterback redraft league. You're talking, 10th round plus.
Yeah.
Being able to get him, right?
Yeah.
So Sam Darnold, I like Matthew Stafford, not just saying that because I'm from Detroit and a Detroit Lions fan.
It's okay.
We all know what the guy can do.
Yeah.
Not so much the organization. People call him Matthew Stat Padford, if I'm not mistaken. And who cares? That's what fantasy football is all about. It's not not about real life football wins. It's about
You'll take the Blake Bortles.
So Sam Darnold, Matthew Stafford, and a personal favorite player of mine, Ryan Tannehill in Tennessee.
Okay. That's 3 nice ones there. Stafford just needs to be healthy. If he would have been probably one of the best quarterbacks of the season last year, the way he started out. And
I've seen a lot of like graphics and rankings and projections if he would have played a 16-game schedule. I hate that stuff. It's so outlandish. Guess what? He didn't play a 16-game schedule, and he didn't have those stats. So I digress.
Well, they're good to see, what would he have done? I don't mind him, personally. I always think it's funny when a lot of times you'll see people who do use those. Oh, if he would have played 16 games, he would have finished here. But no, it factored in what the other guys who missed 1 game there and 2 games there. They don't add their points back in. So it's not always a true representation.
You're living in La La Land.
Yeah.
You're living in Dreamland. They didn't do those things,
Yeah. All right. So at running back, what do you
got? Big Melvin Gordon, the 3rd guy in Denver. I'm a fan of Philip Lindsay too. I think it could be in today's day and age. You got the Denver jersey on, so you would know this. In today's day and age, with football, there's not so much of a running back bell cow anymore, right? The days of Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, even like, let's say Thurman Thomas, they're not getting the ball 3 plays in a row for 10 series. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
If a team does it right, it's a hammer, thunder and lightning, the hammer and quick on his feet guy, let's say. So I think Denver puts together a good 1-2 punch this season, with Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay. But again, you would know this more than me. Denver brought Melvin Gordon in for a reason. They didn't bring him in, to rotate series with Philip Lindsay. You know what I mean? So I like Melvin Gordon here. People he's not even on people's radars. You know what I mean? Again, people are living in La La Land dream world where it's just the top 5 guys or bust or nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's Melvin Gordon there. Huge David Montgomery fan in Chicago. If anybody who is watching this has read any of my work or had interactions with me on Twitter, I've long said David Montgomery in Chicago and Miles Sanders in Philadelphia, both teams had no idea what to do with each guy, and even more so with David Montgomery. You know what I mean? And so I think this year, Chicago definitely knows what they have in David Montgomery, and he's going to, get the ball 200, 250 plus times. And the kid is built for it. He can do it. So Melvin Gordon, David Montgomery, and my next guy in San Francisco, Raheem Mostert. He's been picking up some speed. The hype train's kind of chugging along on him on social media from what I've seen. And people just don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? And that's not going to stop what I'm trying to do, or my opinion. I think the guy absolutely goes nuts this year in San Francisco. I'm talking, top 15 nuts.
Okay.
I
think the annoying part for a lot of people last year with that team, or maybe in the last 2 years of that team, is you just didn't know which guy was going to be which week.
Yeah.
So as long as you could afford to take that 5 points, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But when they blew up huge in that backfield. And
it's coming this season, I'm telling you. And real quick, while I have you here and we're talking about running backs, I'm a big Miles Sanders guy too. And I don't care about all the, I don't want to say naysayers, but all these trolls or negative people that say, I wouldn't, at Miles Sanders ADP, I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. I wouldn't draft him if he was on your team. You know what I mean? So a lot of times these people on social media, when they say something crazy like this, it's on purpose. It's for a reaction.
Sure.
It's what they call, what the young kids on Twitter are calling it as a bait post. You know what I mean? So
I'm not a young person. I don't know what that meant, but I figured it out.
You and me either. I'm just learning all this stuff. I'm not 15, 16 anymore.
That's funny.
And I'm not saying you got to draft Miles Sanders as a top 5 back, right? But I see no problem with drafting him at the end of the first round or on the turn in the beginning of the second round. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's gonna be a big run for running backs this year. I'm pretty sure those first 2 rounds.
Yeah,
You better get them quick.
I'm with you there. Yeah.
And let's flip over to wide receiver. I like all those guys. They've got some great opportunities, and they're getting slept on. So, I mean, before we move on, I guess Melvin Gordon down at 17. Could have a big opportunity in Denver. David Montgomery's down at 25, and Mostert down at 28. So that's some value built in there. So
yeah, like Raheem Mostert, he's like he's free. You can draft him in the 10th round, if I'm 9th, 10th round. It's like.
And at wide receiver, what do you got for us?
This is a good one because there's so many wide receivers in that I don't want to say bottom tier, but in that like 4th or 5th tier that are
big,
juicy,
messy.
The first
tier.
one that comes into my mind is in Seattle, DK Metcalf. This kid is he's amazing. From what I've seen, he's humble. He's not a diva. He's not an asshole, and he's got one season under his belt in Seattle, And if you guys remember correctly, the day that they drafted him, Pete Carroll said, "Here, I'm going to put you on the phone with the guy that you're going to be catching the football from. Here's Russell Wilson."
That's funny.
You're set up for success there. So I'm going DK Metcalf there. Another guy I've heard zero to no talk about is AJ Green in Cincinnati. You know, that's what happens, right? In fantasy football and professional sports in general, it's about what have you done for me lately, right?
Sure.
AJ Green hasn't done anything lately because he didn't play it all last season. So
yeah, and barely the season or two before that. That's the scary part, right? He's been injured.
Yeah, because he's
another
guy that's always dealing with these nagging ankle issue, injuries, and tell me why that's a bad pick, especially for his ADP. You got a rookie, you got the number 1 overall pick, national champion Joe Burrow coming in there, to throw him the ball. And who do you got? Tyler Boyd in that offense, John Ross in that offense, Joe Mixon, who I'm super high on. He's a stud PPR running back.
So his teammate
AJ
Tyler
Green,
Boyd's 2 spots behind him in ADP.
If
you're on the clock right there, which way would you go? 2 spots.
AJ Green, and that's not close.
Okay.
And I explained, when I say it's not close or by a mile, I explained that the other day. I'm not saying that like as an offensive term, like, oh, it's AJ and it's not close. I'm just saying that to me personally, I prefer one guy over the other guy, because me personally, when I make a draft pick or a trade or a waiver wire pickup, I do it with full-blown confidence, no hesitation. So that's what –
I can believe that. I can see that.
So that's what I mean when I say not close.
Yeah.
I want AJ Green, and I don't care what people say about it,
Okay. I dig it.
Real quick, let's say Michael Gallup in Dallas.
Okay.
That's obvious. You know what I mean? He's probably being drafted. I don't have his ADP in front
33.
of me. He's being drafted, as a wide receiver too, in the top 20 wide receivers,
Yeah, he's everybody got the scares for him when he got new roommates in town. So
yeah.
So
my last guy, I want to touch on one more guy real quick, and it's
me.
Detroit Lions wide receiver Marvin Jones Jr. Now, again, it has nothing to do with me being born and raised in Detroit or being a Detroit Lions fan. This guy, when he's on the field with Matthew Stafford as the quarterback, Kenny Galladay on the other side, Kerryon, and now DeAndre Swift behind him, we know what this guy can do. He was keeping – Kenny, I'm sure people know this, Kenny Galladay led the league in touchdown receptions last year, and Marvin Jones was keeping pace with him until he was hurt and then forced to miss the rest of the season. So Marvin Jones is literally on nobody's radar, until a couple days ago when someone mentioned him. I chimed in, and then before you know it, that's how social media is.
Yeah. 36 is where they got him. That's pretty deep down there. 36 is that's gonna be a real late round. Often disrespected. Yeah,
and I love it.
Yeah. It's a great shot to take.
I honestly think you can get wide receiver 2 numbers out of Marvin Jones this year. Again, if I'm wrong, I'll eat it. But I just said moments ago, every decision, thought, writing, anything I make is done with full-blown confidence. You know what I mean? So, well, I mean, Marvin Jones at his ADP, he could be good this season or he could be bad, and then that's it. Well, what are you trying to say, guy? You're not make a choice.
It could rain today or it could be sunny.
Yeah. Make a choice and stick with it.
That's funny.
Live with
I like it. All right. We're going to wrap this one up here shortly. So we got some more great shows coming up for you soon. Go ahead and subscribe. You don't want to miss out. Robin, I know you said you're drinking water. I swear that was a bottle of energy drink because, man, you got some fire, and I love it. No, I really don't think you're drinking it, but yeah.
I love talking fantasy sports with people that I like and respect. So you have both of those.
I appreciate it, man.
So I appreciate the opportunity to hang here and talk with you. Talk IDP and fantasy football in general for, over an hour now.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Right there. Yeah. Why don't you give these folks a reminder of where they can find you one more time?
I'm always available on Twitter at Detroit Beastie. You can tag me, mention me, DM me. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a hotshot. I will answer any and every question that I get. I enjoy it. I actually prefer it. So at Detroit Beastie on Twitter, and you can always find me or my content at dfscheatsheet.com. Come
Awesome.
find me there. That's where my content is, on Twitter at Detroit Beastie. And let's get a conversation going.
Awesome. Yeah, he's a good guy to follow, good guy to listen to, good guy to chat with. So go do as he told you and go check him out. I can be found on Twitter at Bob's3Toad, on YouTube, Bob's 3Toad Warriors. And you can listen to new shows that are now dropping Monday and Thursdays. A little schedule adjustment there. I feel like that might be a more in tune for now. And I think when the season starts, we'll go 3 days a week. But for now, we'll do Mondays and Thursday mornings, just about anywhere podcasts can be found. That's it for the show. It's been Bob's 3-Toed Warriors. Special guest, the Detroit Beastie, Chris Robin. Reminding you that soon enough, you'll be able to hit the waiver wire, set your lineup, dominate your opponents. Let's win some damn championships together, people. Bye.